The curtain closed on Radar O'Reilly's iconic character, leaving MASH fans stunned and filled with questions. His departure was more than just a cast change. It marked a seismic shift in the show's narrative. For years, Gary Berghoff dedicated himself to embodying the heart and innocence of the 4077th, portraying Radar so authentically that audiences often felt a deep connection with him. When he departed, it felt personal to many viewers. Was it the relentless filming schedule that wore on him? Were there underlying tensions that affected his experience? Did creative disagreements with the show's producers lead to his exit? Or was there a more profound personal struggle at play? As this documentary unfolds, it delves into the unique pressures, both personal and professional, that culminated in one of television's most emotional exits. To comprehend why Gary Berghoff made that pivotal choice, we must explore his journey from humble beginnings, the challenges he faced, and his artistic passions that shaped him long before Radar became a household name. As Gary Berghoff grew up in Bristol, Connecticut, his modest household shaped his character profoundly. Discipline, humility, and the importance of self-expression were values emphasized by his family. His mother, Anne, played an instrumental role in his early life. A former professional dancer and theater director, she infused their home with a deep appreciation for the arts. This nurturing environment sparked Gary's creativity. He often found solace in artistic pursuits. His father, Rodney, while stern, provided a constant presence in his life, teaching him about responsibility and the value of hard work, even as he worked in a manufacturing job. Being the youngest of 3 siblings, Gary always sought a way to distinguish himself. This desire manifested in his quiet, introspective nature and artistic inclinations. Childhood struggles, particularly with dyslexia, posed significant challenges in academic settings. However, his family's unwavering support helped him confront these difficulties. His mother's encouragement allowed him to explore various forms of art, from painting to drumming. Instead of joining his friends in sports, Gary immersed himself in creativity, crafting colorful paintings, and mastering intricate jazz rhythms. Through these experiences, he began to see his unique qualities as assets rather than limitations. The foundation laid by his family instilled in him a strong sense of self, where his differences became the very traits he would later embrace and showcase in his career as an actor. When the Berghoff family later relocated to Delavan, Wisconsin, Gary's creative world truly began to blossom. The small town, though humble, provided a supportive community for a young boy with artistic leanings. At Delavan Darien High School, Gary became known not just as a quiet student, but as someone with extraordinary artistic talent and emotional intelligence. He won awards for his paintings, which displayed a rare sensitivity to light and mood for someone his age. Yet, it wasn't just the visual arts that captured his attention. Music, particularly drumming, became a daily obsession. He played with local jazz groups, performed in local nightclubs, and earned a reputation for being able to carry a complex rhythm without missing a beat. His expressive drumming allowed him to channel his energy and anxiety into something productive and powerful. Encouraged by his teachers and mother, Gary pursued drama and fine arts at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. While there, he explored stage performance more seriously, immersing himself in plays and student films. However, the structured environment of academia soon felt constricting. Gary was a doer, a performer, someone who needed real-world experience to grow. Eventually, he made the brave decision to drop out of college, determined to pursue acting full-time. He moved to New York, where he supported himself through odd jobs, waiting tables, doing clerical work, and even working as a jewelry designer, while continuing to perform as a jazz drummer in small clubs. These years were filled with rejection and uncertainty, but they also hardened his resolve. Every minor acting role, every late-night gig was another step closer to the big break he knew he had in him. Gary's journey in entertainment began not with the glamour of Hollywood, but with the dedication of live theater. His significant break came with the off-Broadway production of You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown, where he took on the role of Charlie Brown. In this part, he infused genuine awkwardness and emotional depth that would become hallmarks of his acting style. Critics praised him for an earnest and refreshingly understated performance, which gave him increased visibility in the industry. As he rode this wave of momentum, he started auditioning for various roles in television and film, slowly building his career. During this pivotal time, director Robert Altman sought fresh talent for his upcoming war movie, MASH. Gary's audition impressed Altman, leading to his casting as Radar O'Reilly, the perceptive and kind-hearted company clerk. Despite being part of an ensemble cast, Gary's portrayal resonated with audiences, infusing humor and sincere emotional depth into the character. His strong performance cemented his importance, resulting in him being the only actor from the film to continue his role in the subsequent television series. This pivotal decision highlighted his integral role in MASH and marked a significant turning point in his career, leading to widespread recognition. In 1972, MASH premiered on CBS and quickly became one of the most loved shows in American television history. Radar O'Reilly stood out as the boyish clerk who seemed to have an uncanny ability to be everywhere, anticipating what would happen before anyone spoke a word. His character, played by Gary Berghoff, comforted the wounded and kept the unit running smoothly amid chaos. Gary made Radar unforgettable by bringing vulnerability, empathy, and a hint of sadness that added depth to the role. As the series progressed, Radar transformed into more than just comic relief. He became a symbol of innocence in a war-torn world. Gary infused Radar with his own qualities, making him feel authentic and relatable, rather than a mere caricature. This realistic portrayal won him much admiration, culminating in a Primetime Emmy win in 1977. Gary's collaboration with the writers was vital, as he often suggested ways to deepen Radar's emotional scenes, allowing for character growth beyond the cute kid image. Through 8 seasons, Radar evolved into the show's emotional anchor, representing kindness and decency amid turmoil, and Gary's contributions were pivotal to this beloved character's journey. While portraying Radar O'Reilly on MASH, Gary Berghoff faced numerous challenges that took a toll on him. The shooting schedule was tough, often extending to 12 or 14-hour days, whether under the bright studio lights or in remote outdoor locations filled with dust and noise. This demanding routine drained his energy and emotional reserves, as the role required him to convey innocence and vulnerability in the face of heavy themes like death and moral conflicts. In each episode, the emotional depth of the narrative mirrored Gary's personal struggles, making it difficult for him to detach from Radar's character. Additionally, he dealt with a physical challenge stemming from a minor deformity in his left hand, which he worked hard to hide through clever camera angles and precise blocking. This added to his anxiety and weariness. The fame that Radar's popularity brought also proved burdensome, as Gary was not naturally inclined toward the spotlight. As his discomfort with fame increased, rumors began to spread about creative differences, suggesting that he felt the show was straying from its original heart. With the mounting pressures of the demanding workload and a longing to be with his family, Gary felt the weight of both his role and his discontent increasing. Despite his deep affection for Radar and the series, he found himself emotionally exhausted and yearning for a simpler, more genuine life away from the intense demands of television production. Emotionally, Gary Berghoff found himself walking a delicate tightrope throughout his tenure on MASH, one that required him to balance the pure-hearted innocence of Radar O'Reilly with the series' often devastating themes of war, death, and human suffering. While Radar was meant to be the show's moral compass, an emotional anchor, portraying him demanded that Gary constantly tap into his most vulnerable self. Over time, this persistent emotional excavation began to wear on him. He wasn't simply playing a role, he was living it. The trauma depicted in the storylines wasn't abstract for Gary. It seeped into his psyche, leaving him emotionally exhausted after long days of filming. Episodes that featured wounded soldiers, dying children, and the psychological toll of war on medical personnel weren't just fictional narratives. They were emotionally grueling exercises for an actor already prone to sensitivity and introspection. In interviews over the years, Gary would later admit that the realism of the show often stayed with him after filming wrapped. He'd carry the emotional weight home, unable to detach from Radar's experiences. It was this depth of emotional investment, his constant need to be emotionally on, that eventually contributed to a growing sense of mental fatigue and an ever-present undercurrent of anxiety that shadowed even his proudest moments on set. Despite the deep friendships he built with the MASH cast and crew, Gary Berghoff began to feel trapped by the iconic role of Radar O'Reilly. The character brought him fame, including an Emmy Award, but it also became a burden as he faced industry typecasting. Casting directors only saw him as the shy, lovable clerk from the MASH 4077, which limited his opportunities for diverse roles. Auditions were scarce, and when they did appear, they often carried the unspoken expectation that he would reprise the beloved traits of Radar, merely in different attire. This confinement clashed with Gary's aspirations of transitioning to serious dramatic roles. He had vibrant dreams of writing, directing, and composing, talents he honed as a musician and painter. Yet, each attempt to branch out was met with indifference from producers, who feared straying too far from the Radar brand might disrupt the show's success. Over time, his passion for the character dwindled, replaced by frustration and a longing for creative freedom. In the industry's eyes, he remained forever linked to Radar, while his desire for evolution went unnoticed. This growing dissatisfaction tainted his MASH experience, reflecting the struggle many actors face when the roles that define them also confine them. Behind the scenes of the tightly run MASH set, not everything was as harmonious as it appeared on screen. One of the most talked about tensions involved Gary Berghoff and his co-star Alan Alda, who played the beloved but sharp-tongued Hawkeye Pierce. While both actors were professionals committed to their craft, their creative philosophies couldn't have been more different. Gary was instinctive, emotional, and often worked best when he could let his natural charisma and spontaneity take the lead. Alan Alda, on the other hand, approached acting with a more cerebral intensity, analytical, deliberate, and deeply structured. This contrast in methods often led to disagreements, particularly in scenes that required emotional nuance or tightly timed exchanges. Their interactions reportedly became strained, with occasional friction over screen time, dialogue delivery, and directorial decisions. Gary, who was already feeling undervalued and emotionally fatigued, sometimes perceived Alda's influence on the show's direction as overreaching, while Alda, who took on increasing creative control as a writer and director, may have found Gary's emotional approach unpredictable. Their relationship became professional but tense, and according to several cast and crew members, those tensions occasionally spilled into the filming itself. Subtle changes in the way Radar and Hawkeye interacted on screen sometimes mirrored their off-camera dynamic. Scenes that once felt full of warmth began to take on an undercurrent of detachment or awkwardness. While the two men never engaged in open conflict, the quiet divide between them became an unspoken truth on the MASH set. As Gary's emotional and creative frustrations mounted, they began to manifest in his behavior on set, behavior that some cast and crew members quietly described as difficult or demanding. Gary was never overtly combative, yet his insistence on deeper emotional authenticity, more screen time for Radar, and more influence over the scripts created friction with the production team and fellow actors. He frequently pushed for rewrites or retakes whenever he felt a scene wasn't capturing its emotional potential, and his commitment to method acting, remaining in character even during breaks, sometimes created a divide between him and his colleagues. While some appreciated his dedication, others interpreted it as moodiness or volatility. His perfectionism and vulnerability, once viewed as endearing, now felt burdensome to those around him. Energy levels fluctuated wildly. He could be charming and upbeat in the morning but withdrawn and anxious by afternoon. Strained relationships, coupled with a physical exhaustion of long shoots and emotional storytelling, made for an isolating experience. The same cast members with whom he had shared laughter began to distance themselves, and as the ensemble solidified around the show's evolving tone, Gary felt increasingly apart, still Radar, but no longer truly part of the team. The emotional weight of these interpersonal tensions only deepened his growing desire to leave the show and reclaim a sense of identity and peace. Born with Poland syndrome, Gary Berghoff faced a significant physical challenge from the start of his life. His left hand was underdeveloped, which posed a unique set of hurdles, especially in an industry where appearance is vital. Yet, Gary exhibited remarkable resilience and creativity that set him apart. Rather than letting his condition dictate his career, he adapted in clever ways to manage his performances on the beloved show MASH. He found methods to conceal his left hand, utilizing props, specific camera angles, and careful positioning. Whether holding clipboards, cradling files, or standing in a way that kept his hand out of the shot, he remained ahead of the challenges he faced. Despite his condition, he captured millions of hearts as Radar O'Reilly, a character filled with warmth, humor, and kindness. Gary not only portrayed Radar with authenticity, but also infused the character with a relatable spirit that resonated deeply with audiences. His passion for music and art further illustrated his determination to live life fully. He played the drums professionally and expressed his creativity through painting. Gary's inspired approach to his challenges allowed him to shine brightly, demonstrating that physical limitations do not have to hinder personal expression or professional success. Many viewers were unaware of his disability, as he embodied the vitality and spirit of his character. His quiet strength behind the scenes is a remarkable aspect of his legacy, showcasing his determination not just as an actor, but as a resilient human being. Acting with a concealed physical condition presented an ongoing and unique challenge for Gary Berghoff throughout his career, especially on a show as demanding and visually intimate as MASH. Born with Poland syndrome, a rare congenital disorder that resulted in an underdeveloped left hand with only 3 smaller fingers, Gary faced a daily battle that most fans never even noticed. Determined not to let his condition define him or his work, he meticulously planned every gesture, every blocking position, and every scene with intense precision. He would cradle clipboards, hold radios, or tuck his hand behind props in a way that allowed Radar's physicality to seem completely natural. The difficulty wasn't just logistical, it was emotional. The effort to conceal his hand required constant vigilance, even during moments of intense performance. While delivering emotionally charged scenes, whether Radar was sending a telegram home, dealing with the loss of a friend, or facing the horrors of war, Gary had to remain acutely aware of his posture and camera angles, ensuring the illusion remained. It's a testament to his profound dedication to his craft that viewers saw none of this. What they saw instead was a fully realized character who was confident, capable, and kind, a man whose presence brought comfort during times of chaos. Gary's ability to deliver such performances while managing a deeply personal challenge is one of the most quietly heroic aspects of his career. His physical resilience was invisible, but it underpinned every single episode he appeared in. Gary Berghoff's decision to leave MASH was a significant turning point in his life, shaped by deep internal struggles and mounting external pressures. By the late 1970s, the demands of filming had begun to chip away at his personal life. The long hours needed for the show wore him down, pulling him away from meaningful moments at home with his family. He found himself missing out on important milestones like birthdays and anniversaries. The emotional strain was heavy, and he became increasingly aware of how his absence affected his marriage to Janet Guile and his children. This realization gnawed at him, leading to feelings of regret about not being present for key moments in their lives. The burden of this guilt piled on top of his exhaustion, making it hard for him to enjoy his work as Radar. What began as a character that mirrored his own personality transformed into a role he felt he had to bear, rather than embrace. He reached a point where the risk of losing his marriage and his sense of self felt too great. Thus, he made the painful choice to step away from MASH. This decision was not only about leaving a beloved character behind, but also about reclaiming his life, focusing on what truly mattered: his family and his authenticity. Following his divorce in 1979 and the emotionally charged departure from MASH, Gary Berghoff entered a period of deep personal reflection. For nearly a decade, he had lived under the shadow of Radar O'Reilly, and while the role had brought him national acclaim, it had consumed much of who he was as a person. The lines between character and self had blurred to the point that Gary found it difficult to define his identity outside of the uniform, the teddy bear, and the trademark innocence of Radar. Fans still called him by the character's name in public. Casting directors saw him as only Radar. Though Gary excelled in music, painting, and writing, he began to feel like he had been typecast not only by Hollywood but by life itself. The emotional fallout from that realization was profound. He no longer wanted to be defined by a character he had once loved, but now felt constrained by. He longed to explore darker, more mature roles, ones that challenged him and allowed him to grow as an actor. He wanted to create, to write his own stories, and bring his own voice to life behind the camera. However, re-entering the industry on his own terms proved difficult. He had become a symbol of innocence and warmth at a time when Hollywood was shifting toward grittier, more cynical narratives. As offers dwindled and opportunities remained elusive, Gary found himself in a kind of professional purgatory, desperate to move forward, yet forever tethered to the past. Still, he pressed on, determined to find a new purpose and reclaim the parts of himself he had left behind in the operating tents of the 4077. The farewell episode, titled Goodbye Radar, aired as a 2-part arc in 1979 and remains one of the most emotionally charged send-offs in television history. Gary Berghoff's exit was unique compared to other character departures due to its sensitivity and depth, paying tribute to both the actor and the legacy of Radar O'Reilly. The plot centered on Radar's return to Iowa after the death of his uncle, prompting him to choose between military duty and his family. This conflict served as a metaphor for Berghoff's own departure from the show and his relationships with the cast. As Radar struggled with his choice, The episode artfully utilized flashbacks of his most cherished moments and interactions that resonated with viewers. Conversations with beloved characters like Hawkeye, Colonel Potter, and Klinger were filled with emotional layers and subtext. Radar's farewell speech was moving, filled with hesitation and sorrow, encapsulating the complex emotions linked with parting ways. The finale showed Radar walking away, teddy bear in hand, against the compound's backdrop, beautifully concluding a character who embodied the moral core of MASH. This moment was a profound tribute to the themes of empathy, integrity, and quiet strength that resonated throughout the series. The Goodbye Radar episodes stand out as a pivotal moment in television history, showcasing exceptional character development and storytelling. Gary Berghoff's portrayal of Radar O'Reilly resonated powerfully with audiences, emphasizing the character's emotional fragility and innocence. His performance touched viewers deeply, making them feel a personal connection as they watched a dear friend leave. After following Radar's journey over 8 seasons, fans were not merely bidding farewell to a fictional clerk. They were saying goodbye to a piece of their own hearts and memories. The teddy bear, frequently associated with Radar, became a potent symbol of his purity and loyalty. It encapsulated the essence of a character whose emotional resilience shone through the challenges of a war setting. Even after his departure, Radar's influence remained palpable within the camp, as other characters referenced him, ensuring that his legacy continued to impact the storyline. For many fans, the farewell marked the conclusion of an era, a poignant reminder of innocence overshadowed by the stark realities of conflict. Berghoff's performance not only enriched the episode, it preserved the memory of Radar as a beloved figure in television, marking the goodbye as a significant cultural moment that reflected the depth of the show and Berghoff's artistry. His legacy endures, echoing in the hearts of audiences who cherish the character's journey. With Gary Berghoff's departure from MASH in 1979, the series faced a significant shift that reverberated through its narrative and emotional core. His character, Radar O'Reilly, played an essential role in balancing the chaos of the show with his innocence and sincerity. As the character who often served as the moral center, Radar's leaving created a void. This absence shifted the show's tone, moving away from the whimsical elements that had shaped its early seasons. New characters, such as Klinger, were introduced to fill this gap and bring a fresh dynamic. However, while they infused energy and humor, something intangible was lost. The change allowed MASH to delve deeper into the complex relationships and moral dilemmas faced by the characters, making the storytelling more reflective. The humor took on a heavier tone, often exploring the psychological effects of war, rather than simply being a source of lightheartedness. Although MASH continued to achieve creative success after Berghoff's exit, fans and cast alike felt that the absence of Radar was keenly felt, like losing a cherished family member. The energy among the remaining cast shifted, requiring them to adapt to a new rhythm. Without Radar's familiar voice, the set felt a little emptier, echoing the emotional impact that his departure had not only on the characters, but also on the audience who had formed a deep bond with him throughout the series. Although creative and interpersonal tensions existed during the making of MASH, the response from the cast following Gary Berghoff's departure was filled with genuine respect and a deep sense of emotional loss. Alan Alda, who often played off Gary's character, Radar, acknowledged Gary's significant contribution to the show. In interviews, Alda emphasized Gary's unique talent in blending vulnerability with humor, a skill few actors possess. Loretta Swit, known for her role as Major Margaret Houlihan, expressed her strong personal and professional connection with Gary, reminiscing about his emotional depth and knack for bringing laughter, often in unexpected ways. Jamie Farr, who portrayed Klinger, and Mike Farrell, playing B.J. Honeycutt, echoed these thoughts, describing Gary as more than just a colleague. He was like family. His absence was keenly felt, as cast members recognized that while they had managed prior cast changes, Gary's exit held a distinctly poignant weight. Radar's innocence and warmth had become integral to the cast dynamic, and the bonds formed during the show's demanding production created relationships that felt familial. Thus, Gary's departure not only marked the end of a professional chapter, but also highlighted the emotional connections formed in a fictional setting that felt like home to many. After stepping away from MASH, Gary Berghoff deliberately chose a path that favored peace over prestige. Although still recognized everywhere he went, he turned down high-profile roles and opportunities in order to spend more time with his family and rediscover the creative spark that had driven him long before fame. Still, he remained active in the entertainment world, albeit on a more relaxed and selective basis. He appeared on popular game shows like Match Game and Hollywood Squares, where his wit and charm remained as engaging as ever. These appearances allowed him to connect with fans in a lighter format, far from the emotional depth of Radar. Gary also returned briefly to the world of MASH through the short-lived spin-off After MASH, reprising his role as Radar in a special two-part episode titled, It Had to Be You. Though the series itself struggled to find footing, Gary's appearance was a highlight, showing how beloved the character remained. Alongside his limited acting work, Gary began exploring other facets of his artistic identity. He delved deeper into his lifelong passions for painting, drumming, and wildlife conservation. He found fulfillment in pursuits that allowed for reflection and self-expression, crafting a post-MASH life that, while quieter, was deeply meaningful. In the years following his successful television career, Gary Berghoff became more than just a beloved actor. He emerged as a well-respected wildlife artist and conservationist. Fueled by a profound appreciation for the natural world, he began creating detailed and emotionally charged portraits that depicted animals in their habitats. He captured the majesty of eagles soaring through the sky, the serenity of deer resting peacefully, and the stealth of wolves navigating snowy landscapes. His artwork showcased a remarkable blend of technical prowess and emotional depth. As a result, he gained recognition within both the wildlife and art communities across the nation. Gary's paintings were not merely decorative pieces. They conveyed his heartfelt connection to nature, which served as a sanctuary for him after years of the demanding emotional labor of acting. However, painting was just one facet of his newfound mission. Gary also became a licensed wildlife rehabilitator in California, dedicating himself to caring for injured creatures. He worked closely with species like birds and raccoons, nurturing them back to health and facilitating their return to the wild. This chapter in his life revealed a more tender and introspective side of the man who once played the iconic role of Radar. His commitment to animal welfare was authentic and hands-on, driven by genuine love for the creatures he helped and a strong desire to make a difference. By leveraging his fame, Gary raised awareness about endangered species and advocated for environmental protection. His efforts underscored that his compassion and dedication went far beyond the realm of television and into the heart of wildlife conservation. Even as he withdrew from the public eye, Gary Berghoff never let go of his first artistic love, music. A lifelong drummer with a keen sense of rhythm and passion for jazz, he formed a trio that performed at small venues, jazz clubs, and special events. His drumming was more than a hobby, it was an emotional outlet, a space where he could lose himself in sound and movement. Performing live allowed him to reconnect with the raw joy of creation, an experience free from the constraints of scripts or camera angles. Music had always been part of his DNA. Even during his time on MASH, Gary's musical talents were occasionally woven into the show, with episodes featuring scenes of Radar playing the drums or listening to records, subtle nods to the actor's real-life skills. Post-MASH, he used those talents to bring joy not only to himself but to others, performing in benefits, church events, and even composing music in his spare time. For Gary, music wasn't about fame, it was about peace, expression, and the simple, irreplaceable thrill of creating something beautiful. Whether it was a brush on a canvas or a beat on a snare drum, Gary Berghoff continued to express himself through the arts, always following the quiet compass of his heart. Outside the spotlight of stage and screen, Gary Berghoff quietly cultivated a passion that few fans knew about inventing. Gifted not only with artistic intuition, but also with a practical, problem-solving mind, Gary turned his attention to everyday issues that sparked his curiosity. One of his most well-known inventions was a fishing tool called Chum Magic, a device designed to help recreational fishermen attract fish by distributing bait effectively underwater. It wasn't just a novelty product, it was a practical, well-thought-out tool that reflected Gary's lifelong love of the outdoors and his hands-on approach to both nature and innovation. Another notable invention was a sanitary toilet seat handle, designed for public restrooms to help users lift the seat without touching it directly. While this might seem like a simple idea, it demonstrated Gary's attention to overlooked problems and his desire to create small but meaningful improvements to daily life. He wasn't chasing wealth or recognition with these inventions, he was simply acting on a genuine impulse to make the world more comfortable and hygienic, one idea at a time. In each product, there was a glimpse of the same sincerity and care he brought to his performances, a desire to help others, to think creatively, and to leave the world just a little better than he found it. Gary's deep love for the natural world extended into a lesser-known, but equally meaningful hobby, philately, the study and collection of postage stamps. However, this pursuit was not merely for nostalgia. It served as an extension of his advocacy for conservation and a tribute to the animals and wilderness he cherished. In 1993, Gary was invited by the U.S. Postal Service to help select a stamp design honoring American hunters. This role allowed him to emphasize the significance of respecting and preserving wildlife habitats. That experience sparked a profound interest, leading to a carefully curated collection of wildlife-themed stamps, showcasing endangered species, migratory birds, and national parks. Each stamp in his collection conveyed a narrative, not just about the animal it depicted, but also about Gary's evolving relationship with the natural environment. He often relied on his collection as an educational tool, discussing the importance of environmental stewardship, ethical hunting practices, and the necessity of protecting ecosystems for future generations. Through philately, Gary discovered a meaningful avenue to blend his personal passions with public education, creating connections among beauty, awareness, and purpose that resonated deeply with many. His stamps, much like his paintings and performances, bridged the gap between artistry and advocacy, leaving a quiet yet lasting impact on those who appreciated both nature and the stories that stamps can tell. In 2009, Gary Berghoff offered the world an unexpected and deeply personal gift, his memoir, To Mash and Back: My Life in Poems and Songs. This work departed from the usual style of traditional autobiographies, favoring poetry and song over mere timelines and anecdotes. Through this artistic lens, Gary weaved reflections and original poems that laid bare the emotional tapestry of his life. Fans gained invaluable insight into a man who had often kept his private life at a distance. The book explored various themes, including the pressures that accompany fame, moments of insecurity, the joys tied to fatherhood, and the pain of personal loss. Gary's honest storytelling resonated deeply, revealing layers of vulnerability that many did not expect from a television star. His songs captured the rhythm of his soul, shaped by experiences both tender and traumatic. The poems reflected the quiet wisdom visible in Radar's eyes, offering a nuanced understanding of his character and himself. With this memoir, Gary Berghoff shifted from being merely an actor to a storyteller whose message transcended roles. Readers were treated to a fuller portrait of a man often overshadowed by his iconic part, allowing them to appreciate the complexities that lay beyond the screen. His work became a touchstone for longtime fans, illuminating the man behind the performances and enriching the connection between them. After years of stepping away from the screen, Gary Berghoff made a heartfelt comeback to acting in 2010 with the faith-based independent film Daniel's Lot. This project focused on themes of redemption and community rebuilding following loss, which resonated deeply with Gary's personal values. His role allowed him to reconnect with storytelling, free from the commercial pressures imposed by major studios and network contracts. Fans were thrilled to see Gary return to the screen, portraying a character that was older, wiser, and more grounded. His performance was soft-spoken and nuanced, delivering an emotionally compelling representation that reminded audiences of his enduring presence. Although Daniel's Lot was not a blockbuster, its success did not rely on box office numbers. For Gary, this experience was about returning to the medium he loved, aligned with his life's evolution. He approached this role as a creative reawakening, demonstrating that storytelling remained a vital part of him. This return was subtle, yet impactful, illustrating that even after stepping back, true artists continue to create meaningfully. Gary Berghoff's estimated net worth now stands at about $6 million, showcasing his varied and successful career that goes beyond his early fame. His wealth largely originates from his iconic role on the TV series MASH, where he earned both recognition and substantial financial rewards during its peak. Despite achieving great success as an actor, Gary expanded his career through wise choices and creative endeavors that brought him financial security. He turned his passion for wildlife into art, creating paintings that became sought-after collectibles, displayed in galleries, and sold as limited edition prints. Additionally, he remained in the public eye by participating in popular game shows during his career transitions. Gary used his celebrity wisely, becoming a spokesperson for major brands like IBM and BP in the 1980s and 1990s. He also embraced the digital age by supporting online auction platforms, effectively reaching fresh audiences. His journey indicates that his pursuit of wealth was not about amassing riches, but finding personal fulfillment. Through thoughtful decisions in both his professional and personal life, Gary achieved financial independence while actively supporting causes close to his heart, such as conservation, education, and the arts. In uncovering the reasons behind Gary Berghoff's departure from MASH, we come to understand the man behind the beloved character of Radar O'Reilly. After years of embodying this role, Berghoff faced numerous pressures that contributed to his decision to leave. The grueling filming schedule often left him drained, impacting his mental and physical health. Tensions on set may have also played a role, as creative differences arose between Berghoff and the show's producers. Moreover, this decision was not merely a professional one. It reflected a personal journey filled with challenges and self-discovery. Berghoff longed to pursue his artistic passions beyond Radar, seeking new experiences and growth. By revealing the emotional and practical factors surrounding his exit, the documentary provides a deeper appreciation for Berghoff's legacy while highlighting how the character's departure resonated with fans. The exploration of his journey invites viewers to reflect on what it means to evolve in one's craft